Hey guys, MC Mura here, and today we're gonna talk about the Street Fighter 6 input system, how micromanaged and kinda how crazy and intentional it is, and it really tells you a lot about the game and its design in general. It's something I've been thinking a lot ever since Viper came out, because Viper have some very interesting input quirks. So as you know, Viper have some special moves that can be feint cancelled. For example, her Thunder Knuckles and obviously Seismos, right? And the idea behind this is you do the special, and just before just because Viper commits to hitting the move, you press a kick and she cancels out of it, right? It's a feint. Now, typically the input is supposed to look like this, where I did fireball backwards and medium punch, and then I pressed a kick and she did the feint. And this is how you did them in Street Fighter 4 as well, but you had to press like punches anyway. It's kind of the same idea. Like you have to do the special and then do the follow-up to cancel, right? It's pretty much like Zagzis. It's the follow-up to the move, right? But what people found day one with Viper is that you can hold like a kick button, and if I just do it fireball backwards and punch, I'm getting the feints, right? I'm getting in frame one, I'm getting them as fast as possible. And this applies to the super jump cancels on hit as well. For example, if, say, one thing about Viper that people do a lot is Seismo into Seismo, right? When you do like a Seismo into Seismo. And here I did it in the traditional way, where I did an uppercut input, and then I did a super jump canceled uppercut, and it worked. But what's interesting here is that I can do the first uppercut, I can hold the heavy punch button, and I'm gonna get the second Seismo. See here, I did the first uppercut, I held heavy punch the entire time, and I just got the second Seismo. So I got Seismo to Seismo simply by holding the heavy punch button. I never had to do the input again, I never had to press the button. And this is something that people may confuse with negative edge, but that is not really the case. If you don't know what negative edge is, it is pretty much when you set the game to register the input when you let go of the button. It is actually in Street Fighter 6, it's called button release input, but it is off by default. So if I turn this to on, say for example, I'm holding now like the heavy punch button. I'm gonna do fireball backwards and just let go of heavy punch, and Viper did the Thunder Knuckle. This is negative edge. You're pretty much holding a button, and when you let go, you get the input. And this is how it used to work in the previous games. This is how something like Minat's V-Trigger worked in Street Fighter 5. This by default is off in Street Fighter 6. But what we just witnessed isn't quite negative edge, because you're never letting go of the move, right? When I'm doing the feints, I never let go of the heavy kick, right? I'm just getting it because I'm constantly holding it. But what I find to be really fascinating about this is that Viper is not really the first case where this happened, and Kimberly kind of have something very similar. As you know, Kimberly have run stop. If I held down a heavy punch, if I held down like a punch button, and I did the run input with Kimberly, she's gonna run stop at the fastest frame possible. So there is already an example in Street Fighter 6 where this was the case. But this is where it gets really interesting when you check out Ken especially, because you see Ken have similar mechanics to Viper and Kimberly. Ken also have a run, and Ken have a run stop, and you run with Ken and then you press light kick to stop. If I'm holding down the light kick button and I run, I don't get the earliest possible stop with Ken. See, like Ken is actually committing, he's doing the entire run animation. With Ken, if I want to do run stop, I have to input run, I have to input stop. It needs to look something like this. So this goes to show you that what Viper and Kimberly have is an exception. It's not really the rule. Where here, if I am holding the kick and I'm getting the earliest possible feint, this works for Viper, but it doesn't work for Ken. And speaking of the feint, this actually shows you how the game is designed in a very interesting way. Right, so in this instant, I did heavy punch and I did super jump cancel heavy punch, thunder knuckle, feint, right? But if you really take a look at my input, you will see that I did a heavy punch and then I did fireball backwards, punch and kick together. I pretty much pressed heavy punch into super jump cancel, fireball backwards DI. And the game read that as a fireball backwards feint or like a thunder knuckle feint. Now, what I find to be fascinating about this is, remember, Viper have two special moves on a quarter circle backward motion, which is Thunder Knuckles and the Focus Force. But when I did Fireball backwards and DI in that instant, the game prioritized the Thunder Knuckle. It prioritized the punch special, right? So say for example that I do Fireball backwards and grab. I'm gonna get the throw, right? Because the throw have higher input priority. But if I go for two buttons that will not give me universal input, like say I press fireball backwards, heavy punch and light kick, the game is gonna give me the thunder knuckle feint. So with Viper, the inputs prioritize the punches. But Ken kind of is the same deal, where he have Fireball and he have Jinrai. Both of them are with a quarter circle forward, one with a punch, one with a kick. If I do the same thing with Ken, see I did Fireball forward, pressed heavy punch light kick, I actually got Jinrai. Instead of getting Hadouken, I got Jinrai. And this is very different to the previous games, where in a game like Street Fighter V, the kick special moves had input priority over the punches special move. Oh boy, oh my dear friends, how I missed you guys. So let me show you how this worked in the previous games. So Cody had two moves with fireball forward motion. For fireball forward and punch, tornado. And fireball forward and kick does the ruffian. So if I did a fireball forward and I pressed punch and kick at the same time, the game is gonna prioritize the kicks. See this, I did fireball forward, heavy punch light kick, and I got the ruffian kick. And this is the same with every character. Poison also had this launcher kick, and she had this whip. Both of them are fireball forward. If I did the same thing, and I'm doing the inputs together, the game prioritizes the kicks. Right? So two special moves, punches and kicks, the game gives priority to the punch. But here's the thing, Cody got his super, which is fireball forward twice and punch. Believe it or not, I'm pretty busy. Well, get out of my... Oh my god, I miss you guys so much. So if I did double quarter circle forward and I pressed the same input I did, the game prioritized the critical art. So there was like a fixed hierarchy, which is critical arts, and if it's special moves, we give edge to the kick special. So it was more like what Ken's have. Ken actually is more of like the legacy way, where if you do a fireball backwards and we got a punch, we got a kick, the game is gonna give you the kick. With Viper, it is designed so that if you press punches and kick, the game reads the punch first. So Street Fighter 6 kind of makes an exception for Viper, where it's like, okay, we're gonna give you the punch. But that is not actually even the case, because we have other characters with punches and kicks on the same input. For example, Ryu. I actually failed it like 3 times. But as you see, if I do them together at the same time, at the same frame, the game gives Ryu Hashogeki. So he's more like Viper. So what this means is that this is done in Street Fighter 6 on a move-by-move basis. The game pretty much decides which move is more favorable. Do we give you the Jinrai? Do we give you the Hadouken? Do we give you the Thunder Knuckle? Do we give you the Focus Force? And with Viper design, it is obvious that it is entirely set up to make the feints easier. They pretty much set this up to be a punch, like to trigger the Thunder Knuckle, so that the feints are much easier. Because if it was the other way around, where you're getting the kicks and then the punches, you're gonna have to do this like the manual way, which would have made Viper much more difficult to play. right? And I found that to be really fascinating because in the previous games, it was more of like a systematic thing where it's like critical arts gets a top priority, and then it's like uppercuts, and then it's kicks, and then it's punches. And it was like a fixed hierarchy, where with 356, it's more of like, all right, with Viper, let's give her Thunder Knuckle. With Ryu, let's give him Hashogeki. With Ken, let's give him Jinrai. And I'm thinking maybe it have to do with modern controls as well. I imagine this is one of the main reasons, because with Ken, if you do fireball forward and punch, kick, or whatever, light, medium, heavy, Ken actually gets Jinrai. He doesn't get Hadouken, he gets Jinrai. So does that have to do with how modern control work as well? Because it's kind of like the same thing with Ryu, where they also prioritize Hashogeki over the Tatsu. So is this a result of modern controls, or is this Capcom intentionally making like the inputs behave in a very specific way that is different on a character by character basis, simply to make certain things easier or harder? Because when I make the Ken guide, I saw a lot of comments, a lot of people are telling me, Mura, what are your control scheme for the run stop? Because some Ken players find the run stops to be like legitimately challenging because there's no shortcuts. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the whole thing? Do you think this is because of modern controls? Is this like a modern controls restriction that kind of results in this? Or is Capcom designing the input priority in this way to facilitate modern controls, or do they just want to make stuff easier specifically? I would love to hear your thoughts all about it in the comment section below. I'll be leaving a link to the Patreon, Discord, Twitter, and Twitch pages in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and stay safe.